afternoon. It's great to be back in Tauranga and the Western Bay. And thank you for taking the time out in your extraordinary busy lives, coming out in numbers you have. This Sunday afternoon, there's this room that's packed and 2 packed overflow rooms as well. So thank you for coming out. And thank you, Alfred Naro, for the introduction and for finally seeing the light. Ladies and gentlemen, we're living through the most challenging international environment that New Zealand has faced in the past 80 years. Navigating chaotic conditions such as these requires something called experience, and experience has never mattered more. This is not a time for performative posturing and senseless virtue signalling. You know what I mean, rolling your hands and your eyes on the TV. It's a time for cool heads and rational judgments about what is possible and an active diplomacy that listens, learns, and adapts to the chances when they present themselves. And that's what we, our team, have been doing over the last 2 years. As for the state of the economy, well, we all know the economy isn't where we should be. We all know that without having to be told, because Kiwis are struggling sometimes with 2, even 3 jobs just to make ends meet. New Zealand First, unlike the rest, has constantly said that it will take time to turn our economy around. We've been open, and when other parties at the last election said they could fix it within 3 years, we said back then it was a mistake. We knew the damage done to the economy by the previous Labour government couldn't be undone in just 3 years. And we'll try and explain today what we mean. Forget about all the politics and all the performative behaviour. People have this desire to know the truth right here and right now. We know it can be fixed, our economy, but it will take time. And we need to communicate that to New Zealanders to ensure Kiwis understand the challenge and join us on the pathway to economic and social recovery. We are making positive movements as our economy in this time is in such uncertain times. But let's face it, we can and must do better. Inflation is on the rise again, but not nearly as bad as it was under Labour. Interest rates are on the rise again, but not nearly as bad as under Labour. Our slow economic recovery has been set back by events in the Middle East. And yet, stability in the Middle East is likely to be restored more quickly than New Zealand's economic return to recovery. Now, you wouldn't think that listening to the newspapers and all these experts who've never had a briefing for 30 years, or talk to any foreign expert or any foreign minister or any prime minister for that matter, but they're all there banging on, putting the fear of God up you. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll be settled before we get our economy right, but we know what our purpose is now. And that's because our government inherited a disaster of massive over-borrowing and spending, not on production, you remember it? Not on wealth creation, not on employment, not on exports, but purely on consumption. Here today and gone tomorrow. There are people in this room whose grandparents will remember a different time when they set out to change this country and make it one of the greatest countries on earth. I dare say there's some people in this room who remember it themselves. They borrowed purely for consumption. And we're paying a massive price for that now. Look, we just had the COVID inquiry showing the previous Labour government borrowed $60 billion to deal with COVID, and yet they spent $30 billion of that $60 billion on something else. Now here's the rub. That's half of the $60 billion wasn't spent on COVID. And you're sitting in this audience, and the mainstream media are here today, and none of them have told you where the other 30 billion went. It's incredible that no one knows. There was a time when we'd be arguing about $50,000 or $10,000 or $1,000. But no, 30 billion goes missing, nobody says a thing. But we have to deal with it. We went from being in the top 3 in the world to a non-competing economy in the last 50 years. Back then we had strong growth of over 5% a year, can you imagine that? Mind you, the people in Parliament hadn't gone to university. You notice that? They've been through a Great Depression, they've been hell and back in a war, sometimes 2 wars, and they're meant to change their country. We had growth over 5% a year, every year, and MPs who understood a thing called nationalism, who understood the national interest. And then we had the neoliberal experiment of, you remember, Roger Douglas and Ruth Richardson, and the rest has been a massive disaster. Down through the decades, there have all these apologies, but today our malignant economic and social circumstances against our comparative brilliant past is standing there in stark contrast. We became the victim of the totally unfettered free market, straight out of the neoliberal economic Milton Friedman textbook. Oh, of course, what they say is, oh, we didn't put it in practice properly. It would have worked if only we would have put it in practice properly. The left and the right, here's the startling thing. You know who began the neoliberal experiment, don't you? It wasn't the National Party, it was the Labour Party. It was the Labour Party. But the left and the right, Labour and National, went on to sell our assets, privatise our country, open our borders to mass immigration, open our society to every Wild West simpleton ideology, an ideology that has been proven over the past 40 years to be an abject failure and purveyor of misery and struggle. New Zealand First has never, ever subscribed to that ideology. Never. New Zealand First began for the same reason. We opposed that ideology. We've also and always believed in economic nationalism, where we own our country's assets, where we have targeted government intervention, where we give a hand up in times of need, where our country gives capitalism a human face, but where everybody does his or her bit. That's right. That's the last corollary, that's the contract. Everybody does his or her bit. Reflecting back, you know, at this time before the last election, we were here in this room, but no one gave our party any chance of getting back to Parliament. Just astonishing. The difference between this time and last time is the mainstream media are here. Well, today we're here now, and the question for the media is no longer if we'll get back, it's now, how many seats will we get? And ladies and gentlemen, we need to win big time. This is an inflection election. We need to turn this country's economy around. And we've got news for everyone, and this time it's all good. We will turn these current media polls into confetti. You got that? I'll say it more slowly. We're going to turn your current media polls into confetti. We've been working hard over the past 2.5 years to build our machine for this campaign. Our ministers, our members of Parliament, all out there to build this machine, the machine that's going to take us home. We are on a pathway to a major shift in the political landscape. It's the first time you've seen it for a long, long time. We have the team, as you've seen, just one announced today. We have the candidates, we have the party, and we have the growing support of Kiwis. This year we'll be packing the halls around the country with ordinary, hard-working Kiwi battlers who see the only party talking common sense. And by the way, do you know why we have these meetings? Because it's what politics is meant to be about. Politics is meant to be a dialogue between the people, the masters and their servants, the politicians. Can you see the other parties holding public meetings around the country? Hipkins, for a State of the Nation, guess where he went to? The Auckland Chamber of Commerce. He couldn't get an audience of his own. Staggering, isn't it? This is the alternative government. But our point is, what happened to our country when politicians thought they could win without having a public meeting?
Yeah, exactly.
Just dash down to the coast and try and find a starfish and put it on the TV that night and you're the Greens. And all the mainstream media there with the cameras don't make a bit of common sense just so that they're concerned about the starfish. Or eating sausage rolls. Can you imagine Shane if I started eating sausage rolls? But they've turned politics into something ridiculous. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our country back. They will see what makes New Zealand First different from every other party. We are the only socialist, we're the only socially conservative party. The only socially conservative party. Amazing, isn't it? You look abroad and you see all these things. Centuries of history being built to build great societies, all at risk now.
That's right.
Because people aren't prepared to stand up for what their grandparents gave them and their ancestors died for. We are the only nationalist party, and that's a nationalist with a capital L, the capital N. Not a capital L. Nationalists with a capital N. And we are the only patriotic party, a word that is so often criticised. We stand proud to be patriots of a country called New Zealand. We understand the greatness of a country that is only one of 9, with an unbroken line of democracy since 1854, that gave Maori the vote by law in 1867 and women the vote in 1893. This is the party and country we come from, and we've got a great tradition. And people today need to understand it needs to be defended.
That's right.
What's most important is that we are the only party that can counterbalance the present spectrum of extremists in Parliament. You've got no idea what's in Parliament these days. Truly. I mean, it's absolutely shocking. What did George Bernard Shaw say, the famous George Bernard Shaw? He knows nothing, he thinks he knows everything, which surely points to a career in politics. And boy, are they there in their thick numbers now. They couldn't even run the school tuck shop. And they're telling you they're going to run the economy. We're not just running in the next for another election this year. We intend to turn this election on its head. Now, the philosopher Plato said, if you do not take an interest in the affairs of your government, then you are doomed to live under the rule of fools. Plato is regarded as one of the most important philosophers of all time. He made this famous quote about 2,400 years ago. But Plato was right then, and ladies and gentlemen, he is sure right now. Let's look at some of the actions of some foolish past governments over just the last 40 years. Look back in anger. First of all, selling our most important transport link, Kiwi Rail, watching it being asset stripped, then having to buy it back again. Or selling a major part of our power generating capacity, causing power prices to skyrocket. Remember what the whole plan was? 1998, they're going to plateau power costs. They're going to plateau power costs. You know what the plateau looked like when it was all over? Vertical. That's what they did. And New Zealand businesses and homes who had an enormous advantage against the rest of the world, have suffered ever since.
That's right.
Or selling renowned brands of dairy produce, Anchor, all the things we took years and decades to build. Selling our biggest meat company into Chinese ownership. How did they do that? Well, they built up the debt falsely. They wrote down the income falsely, just lied to the owners and flogged it off. And the directors got $8 million for doing it. And when I said this is corruption, guess what? No one sued me, did they?
Yeah.
Which kind of suggests they didn't want a thing called discovery. But here we go, it's just happening again. Or selling swathes of our valuable farmland to foreigners. Or part selling, then banning it out, and then selling in total our biggest bank, the BNZ, owned once by the people of New Zealand, with 6 out of 10 customers banked. Selling our forests and closing our pulp and paper mills. Or selling Air New Zealand, Labour, 1989, then watching it go bust, and then banning it out, Labour, 2001, under Helen Clark. Now, Helen Clark was on the post the other day about how she brought it back, but she didn't tell anybody who sold it. Do you like that part? Helen, someone's got a memory. Worse than an elephant when it comes to your failings. But that's what past national Labour governments did. And this type of short-sighted economic ideological madness is going to end. That's New Zealand's first serious promise to you. As we predicted last year, when Fonterra proposed the sell-off of iconic Kiwi dairy brands like Mainland, Anchor, Capity, others to a foreign owner called Lactalis, its CEO would resign and leave once his bonuses are paid. We wrote that all last year. We said this exact thing would happen in our open letter to all the farmers, the dairy farmers, last year. And he, and of course Fonterra, denied it. Ladies and gentlemen, there's mainstream media people here, and I want to know what on earth they think their job is, if that's not a matter of massive national interest. Well, Harold has sold off almost every consumer brand since he started the job 8 years ago. And now Fonterra is a commodity price taker, not a commodity price maker. Just that simple. And yet when anybody questions them, Fonterra screams out that they are a private company. And so the dairy farmers shouting out, well, why are you poking our nose into our business? It's a private company. Oh, that's right. Then how come for 5 decades I've been on select committees trying to give you monopoly to do your job? Ever since being on the Agricultural Select Committee in the 1970s, all these decades, giving you a chance to compete against the rest of the world. It's the monopoly that put you there, not your own ability. And the very time you got there to add value and add wealth and add jobs for the country, you go and flog it off because they offer you some money. It's sad, ladies and gentlemen. The truth is Fonterra has benefited by monopoly positioning conferred on them by Parliament for decades. So they have come to politicians when they needed our help, but accuse us of snooping when we ask on behalf of our country, what on earth is going on? Their decision leaves serious questions for New Zealand about what we must do to protect dairy manufacturing in our country as a result of Fonterra's dereliction of duty. It's quite sickening. There's somebody in this room, his name's Shane Jones. He goes to the Western Dairy and says, look, we can save you. We can save you. No, they decided to be sold to foreign interests. Don't even try anymore. So on earth, the question that we're asking, what on earth are these people doing? What do they think they represent and what sort of economy do they want? Because I see great economies like Singapore, like a rising Croatia, like dare I say Ireland, who learned their lessons and learned to put their country first in everything they did. Grab resources, add value, create wealth. And we're doing the very reverse right under your nose. But ladies and gentlemen, you are the masters here. Please do something about it. The last time a Fonterra CEO resigned is Theo Spearings. He was paid out a ridiculous $4.67 million after being paid over just 7 years, $43 million. And of course, the company was going bankrupt, insolvent. So how much will Harold be paid out? Anybody over there asking from the mainstream media? Come on, it's a matter of public interest. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harold is being paid 24 times my salary. Now, you mightn't like me very much. But 24 times my salary? Hands up if he or any of the rest of them are worth that. Come on. Hands up anybody who thinks he's worth 24 times my salary. I was on a farming show this week. It's astonishing how propaganda gets underway. How you've done this, this and this, and I'm thinking there, for good heavens, other economies are doing 10 times with the same product by adding value. Other countries understand that there's 54 billion plus infant formula business. How come New Zealand's not the leader? We make the best, cheapest, fastest produced milk in the world. How come we're not the leader? It's because we lack the leadership, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why in our future plan this year, we're going to show you what our plan is for the economy, and it doesn't include stupid politicians. And as for the sale to Lactalis, we hear the deal's not going very well. Last week, Fonterra announced deep job cuts to staff. Insiders are saying they are ripping costs out of the business to make up for the lesser sale price. Fonterra, our country's largest company, has gone from a propped-up nationalist company to a sell-out globalist company. That simple. New Zealand First has always fought against neoliberal economics. We are true believers of nationalist economic pragmatism. And just one thing about Air New Zealand. This type of economic neoliberal lunacy reared its head recently when there were calls for the government to sell its major shareholder stake in Air New Zealand. Does that ring a bell to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Air New Zealand needs to stop calling itself the Waka in the sky.
Yes, it does.
Stop all this bull dust and performative behaviour, the Waka in the sky. Can you conceive of a Waka being in the sky? Concentrate on leaving on time. And understand it's the provinces that make this country wealthy, so stop dealing badly to the provinces, costing more than a flight to Australia. But calls for the government to sell our shares when the airline market is in a downturn is straight economic lunacy. And I just explained before. They did it in 1989. It went broke and had to buy it back. New Zealand is our national carrier and a national asset. And if it's not, then change the management. Get someone to do the job properly. There's no end of very talented men and women in business in this country. Many of them will do their jobs, they get a chance. So if you haven't got the right management, change it. As the majority shareholder, the government should be backing its future rather than dragging it down and hopping it off. There was another party suggestion, they said flog it off. Brilliant idea. You get in a crisis and go to airline fuel crisis, you're going to have the airline coming to New Zealand now? All of a sudden you're totally stuffed because another country decides whether you're going to have an airline. See what I mean? Well, they said that just 2 weeks ago, and I'm waiting for the mainstream media to ask the people who said that, on what did you base that sort of knowledge? New Zealand First is the only party that can and will stop this economic privatisation madness of selling our national assets, our forebears saved, scrimped and built for us. And we'll ensure our country's interests and future are put first. If there's something wrong, that all the assets that your grandparents sacrificed for, and built for this country. And along comes a new bunch of politicians who can't run the corner dairy. And to hide that, they want to sell what your forefathers left you to smother over the debt that they've created because of their incompetence. Other economies don't do that. They change and set out for growth. Like, for example, Poland has just done.
Yeah.
It's stunning, isn't it, what they've done? It's stunning what they've done in Croatia. Now, I don't know how many delis are here. But they came out of communism and they're on a pathway, and they're brilliant in terms of what they're doing. We actually used to do that one time, before ideology changed it. New Zealand first is proud of our country and our history. We are proud of who we are, our history, our forebears, and what they fought and died for. We're equally proud of our colonial heritage. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We're equally proud of our colonial heritage,
Yeah, yeah.
traditions and values. Just as those of us who have Maori in our background are equally proud of that.
Yeah, too.
Some of us are half Scots and half Maori. Nobody's perfect. Get you a natural suntan and a desire to save money. But we are never going to put down our ancestors, where they're from.
That's right. That's right.
We're equally proud of that, and we should be. We are proud of the great things we have in our country. A Judeo-Christian background that's refined our law to be what it is. A democracy that's envied by the rest of the world. These things are the exception worldwide. And down through the thousands of years of humanity, these are unique moments in the panoply of humanity. To be in a democracy, to be free. Well, we got it. And we've had it for a long time. But boys are on a challenge now. We are the lucky inheritors of it. Unlike other societies where things are organised in despotism and anarchy, we've got something good and worth preserving.
That's right.
And yet there are some parties in Parliament who want it dismantled and destroyed. That's right. Dismantled and destroyed. New Zealand first believes in one people, one law, one flag, and all equal under it. We believe in a colour-blind state. Now, if you go on the social media today, there are some of these lefty trolls who are saying that I'm going to make exactly that speech about being a colour-blind state, as though it's something awful. It's amazing. I wish I could find these people and see what they look like. I think this is astonishing to understand for one people, one country. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the only party in Parliament with modern Kiwi conservative values, and the only party that is willing to make a stand and fight against this insipid, cancerous spread of the left-wing woke agenda, who think you're going down a rabbit hole if you don't want men in women's bathrooms. So arrogant, they think you're going down a rabbit hole if you get alarmed that men are allowed in women's bathrooms. We believe that everyone is equal, no matter what race, no matter what gender, culture, religion or creed. Our party has that as a foundation principle. Other parties just use it as a convenient punchline. The woke agenda has been wheeled in like a Trojan horse over the last decade or more into our education system, our government departments, our schools and universities, our sports systems, and has most notably seeped its way into our political system. One of us, the other day, we saw this woman on the Q&A where she said that the Maori had been here for 2,000 years. Did you see that? There's a university, 40, 50 years, now just said that Maori had been in New Zealand for 2,000 years. Well, I know some of us got here first, but I didn't think got here that early. Parties on the left seem to think that Kiwis are more concerned with pronouns and ideology. Instead of government creating a free society that encourages hard work and a fair go for everyone.
Yeah.
Despite all those self-appointed, unelected elitist influences, a proud though egalitarian spirit and a modern Kiwi conservatism is growing in New Zealand today, and that's why you're here this afternoon. Thank you for coming out. It's sending a signal to those people, you're not going to be the masters in this country any longer. You know, it's important to mention something that we announced last week, but not again reported in the media. In 2023, we said that we're going to campaign against the WHO regulations. So they get to decide without any reference to our national interests. We made it a part of the coalition agreement, and just last week we informed the Director General of the World Health Organization that New Zealand has officially rejected their proposed amendments. If we're going to make decisions about our health, they're going to be made by you, not a bunch of bureaucrats in Geneva.